Hey everybody, so this was something you told me that this is the kind of homework that a lot of you said you really liked doing and it was helpful, so we're going to do it again. Remember, you're going to get points not only for doing this, but for answering the questions correctly. So make sure if you get to a problem and you're like, I don't know how to answer that, just go back in the video. It won't let you move on, but it will let you go back. So in class, we did two things. We reviewed again about constant of proportionality, and we gave you a table and we came up with an easier way to fill out a table as long as this is proportional. Remember, proportional means that all these are going to be equal. Okay. There might be different numbers there, but the relationship between how many R's there are and how many G's there are. Now, I purposely didn't write what R and what G is. It doesn't matter. They could be anything. Okay. Could be, I'm not even gonna, it could be anything. But R is any number that you put in on this column. And then G would be the number there. And there's a relationship between R and G, and that relationship is the constant of proportionality. So the first question is, what do you think the constant proportionality is? Now I'm going to go through one and then I'm going to give you a couple on your own. So watch closely. So remember, if I want to fill out this table, I need to figure out what is being done to R to get to G. What is the constant proportionality? So I'm going to put a little arrow there just to remind myself that we're going from R to G. Now, that's going to help me later. So in order to know what the constant proportionality is, I can either say, well, like some of you might look at this and be like, it's going from 2 to 1. Well, you're dividing, it's getting smaller, but you can't really say dividing. You have to actually, you're multiplying by something. So in order to figure this out, remember we take the second one, the one that we're going to, and we divide it by the first one. So I just literally do 1 divided by 2. Now, in a previous video, we said that you're allowed to just leave it as 1/2. The constant proportionality you could actually say is 1/2. You're multiplying by 1/2. 2 times 1/2 is 1. But if you did 1 divided by 2 on your calculator, you would get 0.5, and we would totally accept that because these are the same. They're the same. One is just a decimal, one is just a fraction. So once you know the constant proportionality is 1/2 or 0.5, that's all you're doing to multiply to go from R to G. So if I want to fill in the rest of the table, I would just do 7 times 1/2 or 7 times 0.5, and you would get 3.5 or 3 1/2. 8 times 1/2 is 4. And again, I'm just doing 8 times 0.5. So I'm doing just go from R to G. And then this one, we don't know this one, but we don't know, but we know we get 20. So we talked about in class that if you're not going this way, but instead you're going the other way now, where you're just doing the opposite of multiplying by 1/2 or multiplying by 0.5. Okay. So instead of multiplying by 0.5, if you go the other way, if you take this fraction, now you could do this two ways. You could either say I'm dividing by 1/2 or I'm dividing by 0.5. And yes, if you take 20 and you hit divided by 0.5, because we're not multiplying anymore, we're now dividing, we're going the other way. If you do 20 divided by 0.5, you will get an answer of 40, which by the way makes sense because 40 times 1/2 or half of 40 is 20. Now, another thing you could have done is you could have taken the 1/2 and you could have just done the reciprocal. And instead of multiplying by 1/2, we're actually multiplying by 2 over 1, which is 2. So you could have multiplied by 2, or you could have divided by 1/2. Either way, you get that answer. Okay. So now we got our table filled in. We have the constant proportionality, but now we have the equation. That's what we talked about in class. How do we make an equation? So I'm going to erase this so you can see the table. Now the equation, actually you do that when you have a constant proportionality. I hate to say the equation's easy because you do have to understand. So what are we trying to get? Well, in this problem, we're trying to figure out how to get to whatever G is. G could be anything, R could be anything, but they have to have the same relationship. But you see the arrows going to G. So I start my equation with G equals, because that's what we're trying to find. So basically, if you knew what R was, how would you get to G? Well, we already know that. We know that you're multiplying by 1/2 or 0.5. So remember, you write that as saying, you don't write times anymore. You just write 1/2 R. That means you're multiplying R times 1/2, and the answer gets you G. We would have also accepted G equals 0.5 R. It's the same thing. You're multiplying every R by 0.5 to get to G. And that way, if we gave you another, I said that, if R is 100, what would G be? You could just use the equation. I say, okay, well, wait a minute. I know what R is. So all I have to do is 0.5 times R, 0.5 times 100, and boom, you are given what g is, which would be 50. Excuse me. And this is the equation. So I'm going to pause for a second, and we're going to run you through some problems and go over some answers. All right, here we go. So here's another table. I'm not using R and G anymore. I'm using X and Y. My first question for you is, given this table, what is the constant of proportionality? I ran out of room, but what's the constant of proportionality? Okay, so hopefully you got a chance to fill it in, and hopefully you notice that the only line that you know, the only relationship you know are the 3 and the 5. The 10's not going to help you, the 12's not going to help you, but if I did 5 divided by 3, you get an answer of, and 5 divided by 3, you're going to get 1 2/3. So I would have accepted the constant proportionality is 5 over 3. I would have accepted 1 2/3. I would have even accepted 1.6 repeating. Any of those would have worked. I personally like to just say times 5/3 so that's easier to multiply, because this number goes on forever. So I'd rather, when you multiply from now on, even if you picked 1.666 and got it right, I'd rather you pick the 5/3. Okay? That's what you're multiplying one by to get to the other. So if I multiply 10 times 5/3, you are going to get 50 over 3. Because the reason why I know we get 50 over 3 is because I do 10 times 5/3. Watch as I do it, because you're going to have to do this in a second. 10 over 1, oh, sorry, you can't see that, times 5/3, you get 50 over 3. Now, 50 divided by 3 is going to be a decimal answer, but I can write 50 over 3. Or if I do 50 divided by 3, I'm just right on my calculator, I'm doing 50 divided by 3. You get 16.6 repeating. Any of those work, okay? Now, you guys right now, what will this answer be? All right. So hopefully you answered that in the video. But if you, so just in case you got it wrong, what you should have done is you would have done 12 times 5 over 3. Remember, that's how you use the constant of proportionality to get the new answer. So if I do 12 times 10, sorry, not 10, 5 over 3. Okay. I do, remember, it's 12 over 1. 12 times 5 is 60. 1 times 3 is 3. And guess what? If you do 60 divided by 3, you don't get a decimal answer. You get an answer of 20. And that would have been the answer there. Now, the next question is, and please go back in the video if you're not sure how to do this, but how can I write an equation to get y? Okay, go ahead and pick your answer. So here you should have written y equals, because we're going to y. So what do you do to x? So we would have accepted many different things. We would have accepted 5/3 times x equals y. We would have accepted y equals 1.6x, because that's the same thing as 5/3. And we would have even accepted y equals 1 2/3 times x. Okay, remember, you don't write times, you just write the x. And that would have been your answer for that one. Okay.